welcome, welcome. Thank you for choosing to come here to the gallery stage and spend your time with us. We are going to be talking about the future of our plate and how you, as a consumer, have the ability to transform our food system and change the world just by eating multiple times a day. So I want to get a sense of who we have in the room right now to understand what kind of eater you are. Raise your hand if you're a grazer, meaning you're a snacker, you eat like every hour on the hour, like a bird. Who's a grazer? Okay, a few grazers. Do we have any intermittent fasters? 1 or 2 meals a day. You love that lifestyle. Okay. What about steady? 3 meals a day, classic. You do the regular thing. That's the majority of the room. And is anyone like me where you're a little bit more on clockwork? I eat about every 4 hours every day. And if not, I get very hangry. You don't want to see me in that circumstance. Anybody like me? Hangry if you don't eat? Okay, the women understand. So why this is important is that every time that you eat, you are voting for the food system you want with your fork. And we have an absolutely incredible lineup for you right now in terms of what are the ways that we can be looking at our plate and using our decisions to shape the future. I will be your host and moderator for the next hour or so. My name is Annalisa Winther, and I am the host of the podcast Future Food. I'm also an executive leadership coach for visionary leaders who are transforming our food system. So some people think of me as the CEO whisperer within the ears of many people who are leading the change that we want to be seeing here and now. I'm also the co-founder of Top 50 Farmers, and our mission is to make farmers famous. So similar to how you have chefs where everybody knows their name and they have a famous platform, you've seen Chef's Table, we want to do the same with the farmers, understanding that if you know who makes your food and you have a value around that brand name, that's going to completely transform your relationship to the food at the same time. Was anybody just at the legacy stage? Maybe you saw we had a farmer speaking from Terra May, a couple people. Awesome, that's one of the farmers in the top 50, and you can learn a lot more about who those growers are on top50farmers.org if you're curious. But we're gonna start our conversation today by discussing the next generation. Because imagine a world where every single child actually grows up making their own food or growing their own food, and what that would do in our relationship to the food system. We know that today there's a lot of kids that actually think a carrot comes from the grocery store. They've never been out in the land, they've never seen food come out of the soil. I remember my first encounter of seeing food come out of the soil and feeling like that was the most precious carrot I ever ate. It was absolutely incredible. So our first guest is going to be Dr. Christoph Schmitz, who is the founder and CEO of Acker Company, and Acker Impact. And he's going to be talking to us about how, throughout 2,000 schools in Germany, they've reached around 80,000 students in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, enabling every child to have access in school to growing their own food. Please welcome Dr. Christoph Schmitz to the stage.
Yes, thank you very much, Annalisa, for this very nice introduction. Yes, this is Anna, 9 years old, growing up on the countryside. And back in 2013, I made a planting experiment at her school and was harvesting tomatoes with her. After a while, I said to her, "You can also eat the tomatoes and taste them." She looked at me and said, "I've never eaten tomatoes." I said, "No, I don't believe. I mean, you know, tomato sauce, pizza, and so on. Yeah, but not the round ones." I was shocked. That's me. I grew up on a family farm, surrounded by agriculture, no neighbors, but a lot of nature and vegetables. In 2012, I was 29. I was postdoc at the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, and I became father of a wonderful daughter. And since we lived in the city, I asked myself, will she grow up knowing what food really is? And what about the 99% other children growing up without any connection to food production? How will this add up? What does it cost society? Not just in money, but also in meaning. So I have a question to you. Who here has grown vegetables as a child? Okay, quite a few. And who has done it in school? Oh, a bit less, 20% I would say. So my big dream is that in 30 years, when my kids are grown-ups, that all hands go up. Because it's so important. We eat food every day, but we don't longer know. We make over 200 food-related decisions every day. But everything is in our subconscious. It is shaped there, and it is shaped by early childhood experiences. So let's get a glimpse of the size of the problem. So here are some facts and figures. Over 1.3 billion tons of food are wasted every year, and millions go hungry every day. 11 million die related to unhealthy dietary patterns, and agriculture causes around 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. Over 60% of the biodiversity loss is related to agriculture. So we can safely say that the food system is broken. Just let us take the example of meat production. If we have 1 kilogram of beef, it contains 15,000 kilograms of water, around 30 square meters of land, which is roughly a third of this room, 20 kilograms of CO2, and a lot of unhealthy consequences for your personal health. Probably you know all this, but it is not reflected in the price. There are hidden costs to nature and society. And now it would be interesting to see how big this problem is on a global level. And we are lucky to have a study, quite recent study by the FAO and some renowned institutions who estimated this. Here you see the quantified hidden costs of the agri-food system, here related to climate. So the greenhouse gas emissions count up to $0.9 trillion per year. That's a lot. That's the economic size of Switzerland. And then there comes the damage on water use and land use. It's around 0.5. Then nitrogen emissions, it's $1.5 trillion, and on poverty and undernourishment. But that's not all. The biggest part is missing. Guess what it is? Yes, unhealthy dietary patterns. So our daily food decision cause a damage on your personal health and also on the global health, which adds up to almost $10 trillion per year, which is the size of Germany, France, and UK together. So if we have only limited resources, limited possibilities to change something, where is the biggest leverage? Definitely here. We have definitely to tackle this. And we have a lot of possibilities to do so. Yes, we can, of course, rely on policy, on politicians who set the boundaries. We can rely on companies who look for innovative business solutions. And of course, to NGOs who make us aware of the problem and also fight the symptoms. But there's a problem. No one is going to the root cause. Policy stays there because they are short-term minded and they have no innovative solutions. Companies are only interested in business solutions if there is money involved, profit involved. And the NGOs, they keep also on the symptoms level because they have their incentives there. So there is another player going there, and that is social business. So we as social businesses have the task to go to the root cause. Usually it is set by science, so science researched it very well, and we have the challenge, and we have to find the innovative solution based on an entrepreneurial mindset. And if we take our example, we have the symptoms you all know, that is food waste and the unhealthy diet we see every day. Also politics see it, they make measures to fight it. We see companies who see business possibilities there. And we have the NGOs who make always nice campaigns around those topics. But that is not enough. we have to go deeper. And if we go the chain down, we see that it's caused by less appreciation for food and nature, which is due to less contact with nature. And this is caused by less spaces for natural experiences. Just go back 50 or 60 years. Probably most of the people had somehow a contact to farmers, direct or indirectly. Or they had a grandma growing vegetables, or even a school garden. All those places are mostly gone. And there we have to tackle the problem. So the question is, I asked myself, is if we don't know food and nature, if we do not have any contact, if we do not have experience around this, how can we value it? Or put it in other words, imagine a world where children grow up and know how food is grown. They make their hands dirty. They know how nature works and how sustainability works. And that is exactly what we are doing. And it all started with a small experiment back in 2013, where I went with Anna and 15 other children to a field. And I remember very well the first lesson. It was a Saturday morning, because we had no time to include it in the school curricula. And I asked the kids, hey, what do you expect? And there was one boy, Tim, that's a guy with a black shirt. He just replied, I don't care. I'm gamer, not a farmer. Pooh. I thought, okay, this experiment might have failed before it has even started. But luckily, I continued, and a year after that, I founded Acker, and together with a great team, we built up the most successful educational program in Germany. How does it work? We establish a learning space in nature at the school where the kids learn to grow vegetables. We help the teachers to do everything around this program. We have written a curricula. We have a learning platform where they learn everything. We have 500 Acker coaches in Germany who teach them how to grow the food and how to harvest. And they do it 60 to 100 hours per year. They do it in kindergartens with our program Acker. They do it in schools with the Gemüseakademie, which is translated something like Vegetable Academy. But we are also doing it with adults. So with future teachers in universities, where they learn how to do it when they are later in school. Also in companies where employees learn how to grow their own salad for the lunch break. And all our programs, they share an important principle. That is impact. Impact is our currency. So already with the first experiment, I splitted the class and looked how the impact of this program is. And since then, we have conducted over 200 different impact analysis and reports. And we started by doing it qualitative. So here you see one quote from Marie, 10 years old. I don't waste food now. It's a lot of work to make it. And it shows beautifully how usually the kids go in this program. They see it and then they ask, hey, can we harvest next week? No, of course not. You learn how you grow this food over 5 to 6 months with the help of nature, with the help of soil, and with the help of the weather. But now we have reached thousands of thousands of children, so we can also do quantitative analysis. So we have done research, and you see here, 58% of the children end up eating more vegetables. 66% are enthusiastic about growing plants. And 71% develop a more positive attitude toward nature. But besides impact, there is a second principle, and that is scaling. And right from the beginning, we ask ourselves, okay, if we establish this process, does it work for 1 or 10 schools, or does it also work for 100 or 1,000 schools? And so in 2014, when we officially started with 6 schools and 120 students, we grow further to now 2,000 schools and kindergartens. At the moment, there are 80,000 kids in the program, and they are growing on over 100,000 square meters vegetables. Since 2014, we have reached 320,000 kids in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. That's a success, definitely, but it's not enough. We want to reach every child as soon as possible. And to reach it, we cannot grow like we have grown up to now. We need a systemic change. We need that it's normal to have sustainability, to have a learning place in nature, like to have sports or arts, and to learn sustainability no longer in a book, but outside. And to reach the systemic change, we need to hack the system. The good news is we do not need to reach 100%. There are tipping points, like in the climate system, social tipping points. And research shows that it's between 25 or 60% of the population. We are up to now at 10% of all kids in Germany. So how to reach this 25 or 60%? We have identified 3 strategic levers. The first one is, of course, digitalization, because we can offer the program much cheaper and easier accessible for the schools. The second one is teacher education, because if they learn it already in university, it's much easier that they implement it later. And the third one is policy, because the educational system is largely dependent on politics. And to reach those goals, those levers, we cannot do it alone. We need a coalition of many. So we have founded the System Change Alliance, where we put together politicians, people from businesses, from startups, from investors, but also other NGOs. And we need 3 things. First is knowledge about scaling, about the system. We need a network. And of course, we need money, because the old money, the classical money, locked in projects, is not suited for this system change game. So we brought together some really innovative people. We call them Acker Angels. They give money, but a lot of expertise too, and put them together with our partner network of 150 partners. And you are, of course, invited to join. And if you are interested, just let me know, because we can only achieve the vision together. For a generation that knows what it eats. Thank you. No. There's one question left. What happened to Tim, the gamer? After the program, he was really enthusiastic. He was so enthusiastic that he participated the second year as well. And I met him 6 years afterwards. And you see him here with his friend Andreas. And it was really heartbreaking, because he told me that the Vegetable Academy was the only contact point he had with fresh food and the nature-based production of food. So the awareness starts with us. So let's grow together to every child. Thank you very much. Thank you.
One thing that I love about working on food system transformation is that if you're considering coming and working with us in food, you'll find a community of people who have such strong values, but also such a deep desire to collaborate. And you might have heard this on a lot of stages over the last few days and few hours, but I can truly say that in every single venue I go to, there's such a desire to look at how can we work together in collective action to transform our food system, because each of us does make a difference. And one thing I think that's important to know as a consumer, and this is a little bit of a game, but how many different dishes do you think the average family cooks in rotation? Raise your hand if you think it's 50, that your family cooks like 50 dishes kind of once and again. Nobody for 50. Let's do 40. Anybody for 40? 30? Okay. 25? More. 20? Nice. 15? Okay. 10? Wow. 5. Are you guys speaking from your own honest experience of how many dishes you make? I love it. The average family cooks, on average, between 12 to 20 meals in rotation. And why that's really important is that the majority of our food system is built on five main animals and about 12 main crops that make up the majority of our calories. So when you're cooking the same dish every single night, it means that you're not creating that biodiversity in the food system. So one of those super simple actions you can take is just to cook something different, to switch it up, whether if it's a different cut of meat, a new vegetable, something you've never experienced before. And as you just heard from Dr. Christophe, so much of our work is really based on the idea that these solutions are simple. We're already doing them, we already have access to them. We just need to be encouraging and really thinking about where we're spending our dollar on a daily basis, because it's gonna make a huge change. So now we're going to bring to the stage three panelists who are really amazing luminaries in this space and can provide us with three different perspectives, from technology, investment, to science, of how do we look at changing the plate of the future and what's that gonna be. So let's give them a warm welcome. Yay, welcome to the stage. Come on up. So I'm going to introduce each of you and then also have you introduce your work a little bit at the same time. And we'll go ahead. I'm going to start with you, Gabriella. So you're a food nutrition engineer at Yuka. Does anyone use Yuka and know what it is? I love that. We love to see that adoption. So if you don't know Yuka, it's a really awesome app that helps people make smarter, healthier choices when it comes to food and cosmetics. And you do an amazing amount of work to help people understand the science going into that practical, accessible way when you're going to buy products, and understanding, like, what really am I doing when I buy this, and who am I supporting, and what ingredients are they putting into it? And from that point of view, we as a collective can then put pressure on manufacturers. So can you talk a little bit about, when you think of the plate of the future, what do you think it's going to be as your introduction?
Okay, so thank you for this introduction. So happy to be here. It's a really nice environment, really nice place. I think a healthy plate in the future, it would use three main criteria that actually we use also at Yuka. So in terms of nutrition, it's a balanced plate, where you can have, first of all, lots of veggies that's rich in fiber, and also in protein, so plant protein mostly. Good source of lipids and carbohydrates, but also a plate that has less chemicals as possible. And when I talk about chemicals, I think we can talk about additives, and also about pesticides. So a plate that is also mainly with ingredients that are from organic, because when we eat organic, we avoid not only pesticides, but also we have less contaminants, and also we have more antioxidants, which are really good for our health. So I think this is the healthy plate of the future.
And just as part of your intro, what is Yuka? If someone's never used it and is in the room, like, what does Yuka do?
Okay, so this is amazing app that helps consumers to make healthier choices for food and also for cosmetics. So it's really simple. It's an app that we can scan the barcode of products, and then we have a grade of the nutritional quality if it's a food product, and the quality if it's a cosmetic, so not in terms of nutrition, but in terms of ingredients. So we evaluate the products, the food products, with three main criteria. So 60% of the grade is based in the Nutri-Score. So maybe a couple of you have already seen Nutri-Score. In Europe, it's really used in a lot of products. And then this grade of Nutri-Score is based in proteins, in fibers, in the content of sugar, of salt, of saturated fats. And then we have 30% of the grade, which is based in the additive part. So we have 4 levels of risk of additives. So we have additives that are more risky for our health. And then we have 10%, which is for the biological part, so organic products. So then they had a plus if they're organic.
Amazing, thank you. Christine. So you are the founder of Thought for Food and Giga. You come to the stage with a bit of the tech perspective, but you've also built the largest and most diverse innovative community in food and agriculture, reaching 30,000 next-gen talents in over 180 countries. And you've incubated over 100 startups, which have gone on to raise around $300 million in venture capital. So when you're looking at the plate of the future and how we as consumers can shape that, what do you see?
Thank you so much. And it's so amazing to see a full house here in a food and ag session. So thank you all for
Thank
joining.
you for being here.
Yeah, I think a lot about the plate of the future. And of course, I can get weird and describe to you like these totally sci-fi, tech-enabled foods, like we're going to be eating pills or we're going to be drinking our foods. But I actually don't think that's what's going to transpire. I think the plate of the future is going to look very similar to the plates that we have today. Hopefully more diverse, though. I'm with you on diversifying, the crops that we eat and the types of meat that we eat, et cetera. But what is going to change is the hidden layer of innovation that is going to make the foods that we consume more sustainable, more nutritious, more delicious, and more economically empowering for the farmers, large and small, that bring them to our table. So it's really the innovation behind the scenes on how food is grown, how it's manufactured, how it's shipped. That's going to arrive on our plates and deliver a food experience that is going to be better than what we have today. It has to be better than what we have today. And what I'm doing now, as you mentioned with Thought for Food, I built this global community of entrepreneurs. We were helping them build these exciting, game-changing startups in every region of the world. And we were helping them to get their first investments and to, kind of do this shakeup of the food system that we need and that they really wanted. But what I saw time and time again was that the pathways for them to scale were not carved out. So with Giga, what we're building now is an enabling ecosystem for innovation to grow and take hold in the market. So we're working with startups, of course, that's, I have a big passion for this, but we're also working with investors, with corporate partners, and with governments to align incentives and really help this game-changing innovation get to the scale that it can make a difference. And so that's why the name Giga is actually here, because it's about giga scale. Like, we need to think and act in this way. We see it in AI, we see it in other, tech domains, but in food and ag, we still play small and incremental. I believe in the power of the smallholder, but I believe in the collective action that we can do to create giga scale change.
I'm going to leave that as a ... so we can come back and talk about the hidden layers underneath that goes beyond the plate and every step on that way, and go ahead and introduce you, Sagar. So you're the partner at Beyond Impact VC, a venture capital firm dedicated to investing in the future of food and materials innovation with a focus on sustainable animal alternatives. And you've led over 10 investments in early stage companies across synthetic biology, alternative proteins, and next generation materials. So we have another bit of an investor angle, but also very much an animal-based angle, an alternative materials angle. From your point of view, when you look at the future plate and how we're shaping that as consumers, what do you see?
I think I'll build upon what Christine said about the hidden layer. And also I'll build upon what we were talking in the last slides about playing with nature. When you go to the nature, you play with soil. I would actually say that what we are trying to do and what we invest in some of these hidden layers of bioeconomy solution or these applied biotech companies, these life sciences companies, they are actually trying to tinker and work with microbes, with yeast. This is actually understanding how at a microbial level things work. We were fermenting to make beer. We can ferment to do something else. We can ferment to make it alcohol, we can ferment to make it proteins. And I think what I fundamentally very strongly believe, and that's the reason I joined Beyond Impact also as a partner, was that we can transition towards kinder, cleaner, healthier world. I don't see that there is only one sort of protein we need to resort to. We need to have protein diversification. But from where that protein comes from is a point of that, can we make it much more kinder? And can we actually go back to the roots of understanding nature? To me, how I play with soil is how I want to play and understand how the microbes or the yeast works when I'm doing the fermentation. So I would actually argue that we need to think about a generation which is trying to understand the biology, and the humanity and the animals and the biodiversity more deeply with the tools that we have.
Yeah.
And that makes me super excited, not about Frankenstein food, but more nature-based foods, honestly speaking.
I get goosebumps when we talk about this because it's so much looking 100 years into the future, imagining the next 7 generations, and how we keep this deeply humanistic, connected approach, because we are a part of the food system. So often we think of ourselves as being above, that we can control nature, that we're better than it, that we can domineer this food system, when in reality, we're just another part of the chain. And I think it's important for us to dive a little bit into the layers that exist behind just what we get on our plate. And I'll start with you, Sagar, in terms of just the presence of animals in the food system and how we've built a food system that's highly reliant on animals. And it's not to say we want to remove them completely, but we should rethink where they're showing up and how. And that's a big focus of your work. So can you give us a little bit of background on that?
Yeah, it's the relationship with nature, the relationship with animals, the relationship that you have with your dogs, can you have with the other animals? It's the cognitive dissonance that you say in psychological terms. I'm not saying that you can achieve something that you can remove all the cognitive dissonance. In my recent essay and my reflection, actually you cannot. If you try to remove all your cognitive dissonance, you'll be depressed. So, but there needs to be some sort of balance to understand how nature and animals actually thinks, and some of the proteins that we actually get from them are, it's debatable, it's quite important for us. But is there a better way and a kinder way and a more sustainable way? Because the amount of greenhouse gas emissions and methane gas emission happen because of this. We really need to rethink how we produce these proteins and how we produce these proteins. That's the point. Like, those animal proteins are needed, but maybe from somewhere else.
And food is the mother of all markets. So when we're talking about food, you might be thinking just what we're eating, but when we're talking about how animals exist within the system overall, for example, a lot of cars use animal leather as opposed to an alternative leather. And there's a lot of startups, I know there's even some here, who are looking at how could we produce that differently, that when we're eating an animal, it's really for consumption by other animals versus for all other materials.
One very small example I'll leave everyone with is when you eat a cake or when you eat ice cream, you don't eat ice cream or cake because it has to have milk or eggs. You eat it for the sweetness and the affection that you have with some of these sweet items. And why you need eggs or milk? Because of some functionality that you need that to provide the consistency, emulsification, foaming and all. I think we can have much better bio solutions for this, and that's what I feel more excited about.
And Gabriella, you work so much with providing more transparency in the industry because most people have no idea what they're putting into their bodies and how food is made or the way that it's been manufactured at scale, at a giga scale in many conditions. So can you talk a little bit about the way that we see, or where you see the food system going in terms of it being cleaner and more transparent, and how we move away from so many chemical and pesticides in what we eat?
Okay. I think a turning point in history was where we started to have food that we didn't recognize anymore. I think it's kind of started war, because at that time, access to food was harder. And then a lot of chemicals were added to food because the priority at the moment was to have access to food, and we wanted to have food that lasted longer.
Yeah.
So we'd add a lot of things because the priority was to nourish ourselves. But then with time, I think they saw that they could add other things, than not just to have food that lasted longer, to have a better shelf life, but they thought they could add things that get better taste, better texture, and actually to have more money with consumers. And we just added all these chemicals, and today we have products that we don't even know what they're eating. Like, we don't recognize. We have a list of ingredients that are enormous and with chemical names that we don't even recognize anymore. So we're really disconnected with the food that we eat. And we don't really even realize the number of additives that we consume every day. So that's why Yuka is such a powerful tool, because we try to make it simple. These labels, they're full of chemicals, and we translate it because it's normal to do not understand what is written if you didn't do a chemical or a nutrition formation, because it's chemistry and not food. So that's why I think it's so important to pay attention on what we're eating. use tools like YouCove to have a simple information, because today we have so much information from social media, from everywhere. We just need fast and simple information to make healthier choices for our life.
Absolutely. I'm just getting a memory of going shopping with my grandma, and she wanted to buy everything from the frozen food section that she could prepare as an individual meal, because in the 50s and 60s, that's what she was eating, and that was the rise of this moment. And I literally was like, I didn't know people bought this. Like, I thought it stayed buried in the bottom of the freezer section, because who's eating it? But there's people that have those attachments too, and you get attached to those flavors. And that's why they often say agriculture is culture in the center, right? We're talking about changing something that's so much bigger, and technology is here to help us. So when you think about the hidden layers and everything you see in terms of enabling us to get there faster, to this level of connection in our food system, to this level of transparency, cleanliness, friendliness, what do you see supporting us on the way?
Well, I'd like to react to a couple of the points made. First of all, I think bringing transparency in an easy to understand way is fundamental. On top of that, I think it's about having food choices, because like you said, your grandmother, bought frozen foods. My mother did too. You can probably tell from my accent, I'm from the USA. And my mom, being, what she thought was an empowered woman, wanted the most convenient, quick, easy thing to cook and get her out of the kitchen. So I grew up eating that, and now there's a generational shift, and there's a lot of young people who really want to move away from that more convenience food, which is where I want to have a little bit of, because my background is in, by the way, synthetic biology and biotech. I am so for what you're doing. But I do think there are some people that are buying ice cream because of the eggs and milk. And that's the point. There are so many people who have different reasons for making the food choices that they're making. And so we need to bring optionality. And I think the chance that we have, that I loved your point on, was how we have the power now to redesign the food system. If we look at the industrial model that we've built today, it's been built because we were designing for a certain outcome, calories, right, and availability. Actually, there's a lot of criticism of the food system that we have, but if you think about it, it's working exactly as it was designed. We are getting more calories to people, right? But we have a lot of unintended consequences from designing that way. But if we think about the positive side of design, we say we have agency as innovators, as entrepreneurs, as investors, as corporate leaders to redesign the system. And technology gives us a new set of tools in the toolkit, because now we can look at the power of microorganisms to say, what if we can bioengineer this? By the way, I have an I Love GMO sticker on my thing, which I know probably is not going to go down well in this audience, but it's from a company called Ginkgo Bioworks, which is using the power of precision fermentation to solve all kinds of sustainability challenges across food and ag, biomaterials, and more. So do we have to have a new conversation instead of pointing fingers and saying, you're better than me because you're a vegan, you're bad because you eat meat, or you're good because you eat meat, and you're bad because you're eating all of these plant-based, synthetic processed alternatives, and instead say, what are we all trying to achieve no matter what choice we make? That's more transparency, more traceability, higher levels of nutrition, better empowerment of farmers. Those are the goals, no matter what technology toolkit we choose to adopt to use. Regenerative, organic, biotech. If we can all be looking towards those objectives that we want to achieve, we can make technology work in service of those. Instead of, again, pointing fingers about, I'm better than you, or your food choices are better than mine.
Totally. We often get into a place where there's this paradigm of what's going to win, and it can feel competitive within the industry. However, if we look at nature, a diversity of solution exists, and we want biodiversity. We want diversity of thought and ideas and solutions and choices, so it makes perfect sense along the way. I want to anchor us now in the moments we have left to really talk about what our friends in the audience can do in terms of how they can make decisions around their plate from your point of view in helping us to shift to this food system. So I'll just go down the line. I'll start with you, Christine. What do you think our audience members can and should do to use the power of their plate?
Well, I think it's really about empowering yourself, educating yourself, and connecting yourself with people. The plate has always been something that has convened human beings, right? Like in history, it was the table that brought people together. It's where big discussions were held, philosophical discussions, religious discussions, family discussions. And I think the power of your plate is about you and your choices, but it's about bringing people together. And I do want to call out like a couple of people that I think if you have the time to come and meet. We have the leaders from a community called Imagine here in the audience today. Imagine is, a group of people, a collective, focused on creating impact at scale. And I think it's really interesting when you bring people with diverse thinking, again, who care about this shared outcome together over a meal. You can do big things. Another great friend of mine runs the social gastronomy movement, and they're all about, again, having this universal plate experience. So find these types of organizations, share a meal with someone, and share a meal with someone who thinks differently than you. Talk about how the food got to the plate, why they chose what they're eating, and really approach that conversation with an open and curious mind and without judgment. Because you saw, I have my I Love GMO sticker. You might judge me as a corporate shill, but once you get to know me, you might find that we have so much more in common about what we're trying to do for people and the planet. So that's my advice.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Should we just close here? No.
Yeah,
We just-
should I just leave in shame?
What would you say is the power of the consumers?
I think consumers are really a key to change, because industry, unfortunately, it's driven by money, and this money comes from we consumers. And then the real change, it would happen when consumers decide to do not buy bad products. So then industry have no choice to change. They change products, they will reformulate it. And unfortunately, that's how the real change will be. If we be responsible and mindful of what we're doing, what we're buying today, is going to transform the human beings that we're going to be tomorrow. That's so important. And it goes in this perspective of reconnecting to food. If we reconnect more to food that we're eating, we're conscious of what we're eating. So we don't want to eat things that are bad for our health. I think nobody wants to have diseases or have a worse health because of food. And food is directly connected with our health. It's our first medicine. I think we forgot how nature can give us all the nutrients and good things that we need for a good health. So then we need to act actively and pay attention and have a mindful consuming of products, and cook more, and don't be afraid of vegetables, of cooking. They're amazing, they're colorful. And yeah, if we do a bad recipe, it's okay. We try it again, and then we will cook more and more, and then we get better. We need to reconnect and try and make mistakes, but we need to try a bit more mindful of what we're doing.
Yeah, and I want to build on that because on Wednesday I went out to visit Hector, which is a big agricultural campus about 1 hour outside of Paris. And I was learning that in Bordeaux, they're ripping out the vines because in France, the wine culture of young people is disappearing. People are choosing beer instead. So when I think of France, I go, what? A world without Bordeaux? Like, I can't even imagine and fathom that. But there's a bit of eating what you love, eating what you want to preserve, eating things that make you proud of your culture, but also being clear about the power of your question. So when you go to a restaurant, are you asking them, where did this come from? How was this made? Many times, even people working in hospitality do not know the answer and they have to go find out. But if enough people start asking questions, it builds awareness, and then we all start becoming more aware and wondering, and that changes how the sourcing happens. So your questions are powerful just as much as your choices and where you choose to align where you're eating and what you're buying in the grocery stores. Same when you go up to the farmers. If you go to the farmer's market, asking them, how is this grown? Tell me about how you cultivate it. If they see people care, it's going to start shifting things, and you're going to feel that too. I pass it to you.
Yeah, I actually really love what Christine said, and this is something I've been thinking more philosophically and personally also, and really like what in Beyond Impact we say, that accelerating the transition to blah, 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 but the most important piece is, I would say, kindness. If we cannot appreciate other people, why they are doing it, and empathize with that, we cannot have dialogues. And actually what we have reached to this stage is basically because people who wanted to have change also were unkind to people who don't want to change. But we need to understand also why they don't want to change. And also a bit of an appreciation around why this food system was built. Also that gave a decent amount of empowerment to a lot of Western women that you can go out and work also because you have these ready-made cooked meals. So again, we can debate about that. That was wrong and we can transform it in a much better way. But let's have kindness first. And the second most important piece I feel like is we need to also understand this is culture changes and we have the power to change the culture. And historically, if you go back how Japan's Edo period, nobody touched meat. It was just seafood, and Okinawa diet was almost everything was plant-based. And it shifted to something. And I believe that if we come together, have better dialogues, we can shift to a better culture. So I would actually argue that culture is not constant. Culture evolves. And as a collective consciousness, how we let this culture evolve is most important piece of the puzzle that we should resolve.
Absolutely, and I think a key part of moving towards a kinder food system is going to be measuring something beyond just profitability. So even looking at when you're spending your dollar, I know the culture in my household growing up, my dad grew up really poor on a farm in southern Denmark, and he to this day counts his pennies. He's like, it goes back into I'm going to buy the cheaper thing on sale, and I'm like, your daughter works in food. Like at this point, we have to be buying better. Like what is it going to take to shift this? Decades, a lot of time going into this space, but it's what it takes in terms of changing those habits, changing that culture, changing what you value into I'm actually thinking about the kindness. I'm thinking about the value in the other regards of the water, the air, the soil, all these other things that we value so much. So thank you guys. Amazing conversation. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. You can go ahead and step off here. And we're going to keep our conversation going and transition right on into a fireside chat. I'm just going to check with the stage crew. Do we need to change? We're going to change the chairs. Okay, I'm going to introduce our next speaker while they do that. So have any of you eaten at Mur here in France, in Paris? I might be saying that really terribly. Mur? Mur. Okay, you're going to have to say it when you come on stage so they understand what I'm saying. Okay, but we're going to be having Bertrand on stage, who is the dad of 4 girls and a very happy husband. He's also a serial entrepreneur, and for the last 25 years, he's been building companies related to our food system. So he is the co-founder and CEO of The Fork, and then he started LeCactus.info, and then Mur, which is a fast casual chain here in Paris. And he's really been building these amazing farm-to-table restaurants that are competing with the likes of McDonald's and Burger Kings and other places where people go and choose to eat. So we're going to hear all about your entrepreneurial journey. I welcome you up onto the stage. Up.
Hello.
How you feeling?
Very good. Very happy to be here.
Yes, we're happy to have you here. And I'd love to start just by how you got into food to begin with. How did you get into this sector?
The answer is pretty simple, is that every French person, I would say. We love meals, we love food, and when I finished school, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I decided to create a first company in a digital space. It was in '98, so a long time ago, and then very quickly, I had another opportunity to build another company with a friend of mine, and it was a company working with restaurants, so it was the first step. And then a few years after, I decided with the same friend to build The Fork, La Fourchette, for the French people. And because we had this good knowledge of restaurant, and we were thinking, okay, restaurant is a great industry. When you go to restaurant, it's always for a good time. But it was pretty hard to find a restaurant on the internet, and we decided to found The Fork to help people to find restaurants and to have good times. So that was basically it. It was a digital crazy years.
And it was a big success.
Yes, after 15 years. So yes, we grew the company from 3 to 1,000 people, from 1 country to 20 countries, from 1 booking in November 2007 to more than 5 million bookings now per month.
And you sold that to TripAdvisor?
Yes, 10 years ago we sold it to TripAdvisor. Then I spent 5 years in the US, where I discovered also the food industry in the US.
Yeah,
That was a
something
kind of
special.
shock for a French guy. And it helped me understand more the connection, indeed, between what I'm eating and agriculture, because in France and with my education it was pretty obvious, but in the US I discovered that it was more and more disconnected.
So then you went on to starting Le Cactus and Mur. I want to get this part of the story too before we dive in and go deeper. How did that then transition into I want to do another company?
Yes, so first of all, I wanted to make something useful. It's kind of, I was 45 years old, midlife crisis. And so I was thinking, okay, we have this big topic, which is climate change. And there are two, I believe consumer is at the center of it. Of course, companies, policies, as we said. But I was thinking, okay, if we can change consumer, we can change everything.
Yeah. You
Of
hear
course,
that?
I
If
mean-
you guys change, everything changes.
Yes, I mean, the companies, I've been building companies, we are depending on consumers. So basically, if consumers change, companies are changing. That's very basic. And of course, I love food, and I was thinking, okay, there are two topics that are very important. First of all, when I was speaking with people about climate change, about food, there were two topics very important. First of all is education. People don't really know, actually, still the connection between climate change and what they are doing. And the second one was solution. Okay, even if you know, for example, that you should eat less meat and more vegetables and seasonal and local, but that's very hard. That's very tough because today this is not how the system is built.
Yep.
So even if you want to, and it was, as a parent, of course, it's more powerful because you want to feed your kids the right way. And we have 4 girls with Eva. And I was thinking, okay, but it's not enough to tell people what to do. It's, as an entrepreneur, my kind of role, my duty is also to give them solutions. And this is, so Le Cactus is a company that help people understand the climate change and the relationship connection between their consumption and the climate change. On Mur, we will speak about it now.
There you go. That's how you say it. Do you know it now? Anybody know?
No, it's pretty small today. Lecactus.info is a small newsletter, and we are working with companies also. But it's very small. So let's speak about Mur now. Mur is really okay. How can we reinvent the food system from the seed to the plate with what we believe makes sense? So what makes sense? It has to be delicious, of course, because we are French, so we want to eat. Eating is center in our life.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean,
Mine too.
yes, many
100%.
people, but in our culture, it's center. So it has to be delicious. Okay. It has to be healthy. Numbers are very clear. We know that number one causes of health issues is what we eat. That's it. Whether we want it or not, that's pretty clear now. And then it has to rebuild the partnership with the nature. I believe, I love the partnership word because 100 years ago, there was a partnership between nature and humans. We were taking what nature were giving us, kind of trying to adapt it a little bit, but that was it. But with technology, with all what we've been building, amazing things over the last century, now we are really dominating the nature. And so it's not anymore a partnership, it's a domination. And we are saying, okay, but the nature, and the more you work with it, the more you discover the beauty of it. How innovative it is, how generous it is. So rather than saying, okay, we have to work against the nature, we are thinking with Mur, how can we rebuild the system working with the nature? And this is what we are doing now.
Absolutely. So let's break down how Mur works as a restaurant.
Yes.
Because you don't just have the restaurant, you have 2 farms. You're doing almost everything from the farm to the fork and serving it at a competitive price point. How?
Yes, so the Mur journey is that basically every week, so we have 2 farms nearby Paris. We have 5 restaurants in Paris now. And every week, based on what we can harvest, we will build a menu for the week in the restaurant. And then twice a week, The team, the Muir team at the farm will harvest, then we'll deliver the restaurant, and then we will cook the vegetables, and every lunch we will serve more than 1,000 people every lunch with the vegetables from our farms.
Yeah.
So this is very simple, very basic, and this is it's we change today the way the food system works is that I want something, so I'm asking the food system to deliver it to me. Okay, I want salmon, I want avocado, I want whatever, and I don't care where it comes from, how it's built. I want it, so let's give it to me. What we do is, okay, what is growing now near me? Okay, and how can I make it very tasty, delicious, so that I want to eat it? Because I believe that it's very important, you know, in all this debate, we are consumers, we want to have good stuff, you know, convenient, tasty, whatever. So this is a kind of bet. So every week we are doing this harvesting, cooking, delivering the food. On the competitive part, the beauty is that when you harvest and cook fresh vegetables, they are much better. So the taste is, just by doing that, is much better. In terms of nutrition, they are much better also, because as we know, you know, when you harvest vegetables and then you eat it, it's much better than if you wait 5 days, 6 days before eating it. And so I would say that this is our bet with Muir, is that we can deliver very good food at very good price, and that consumer will come, and they are coming. The feedback are very good today.
How do you get to the very good price? Because a lot of people assume that organic, fresh food is the most expensive. That's the luxurious quality in our market today, and that you would go to the fast food chains in order to have something that's cheaper, that you can afford. And that's not the story that you're telling. So how is it competitive at that price point? And what is the price point?
Yes, so the price point you can eat at Muir for lunch between 10 and 14 euros. And that's a full meal. So there are two answers. The first one is that we are cooking mainly vegetables. So of course it's cheaper than animal proteins.
Yeah.
So it reduces our cost. And the second one is more linked to the restaurant industry, which I know very well with the fork, is that restaurant industry is a fixed cost industry. So whether you have 100 customers in the restaurant or 300, your costs are almost the same. So the kind of, you know, what you have to optimize as the restaurant owners is really to have more traffic into your restaurants. And today the mix between our pricing, quality of food, and of course also our kind of, you know, the fact that it's very, very committed in terms of environment makes, you know, the success of the restaurant. So we have a lot of customers coming, and so we basically, our fixed costs are very well splashed between the customers.
Totally. And for me, a telltale sign of good food is how I feel after the meal. Maybe you've eaten greasy food and you can almost feel it coming out of your pores, versus a good meal, you feel fresh, you feel energized, you walk out different. And even if you go to a fancy restaurant, they might not be using the best ingredients, and you can feel it in your body. The more sensitive you become, the more you start eating differently. And I know your customers have told you things like, this reminds me of my grandma's meal, or these are recipes that, you know, you just don't see that often anymore. Can you talk a little bit about that response?
Yes, I mean, so on your first point, this is a feedback we have very often from customers. And a lot of them are amazed by that, because they say, I only eat vegetables, but I'm not hungry at all at the end of the meal. Plus, during the afternoon, because we are a lunch place, I can work. You know, I feel very well. This is of course, nature is very good with us. Okay, we just have to play the partnership. So on your second point, yes, the taste of fresh, raw food is, I would say, universal. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe we have forgotten a little bit about it, but when we can feel it again very quickly, you know, we can feel all souvenirs of our grandparents' meal. or because this is how our body has been built over thousands of years to eat raw, fresh materials. And the customer feedback is yes. They say, I mean, it's like my grandma a little bit better, but because your grandma or maybe mine or maybe, but you know, they were just cooking fresh products. That's it.
Totally.
That's it.
And can you tell us about when you first experienced the magic of nature and the magic of a seed and what it can do?
Yes. So yes, with Mur, so I kind of became a farmer. So very young farmer for now. But and what amazed me, but this is also my business sense, is a kind of magic and productivity of the nature. For example, a seed of tomato is 1 gram. Okay, 1 gram. And every seed will give us 20 kilograms of tomatoes. Okay, so it means it's a 20,000 yield. And you know, you plant the seed, sun, water, and at the end, that's 20 kilograms of tomatoes.
It's amazing.
Yes, that's amazing. I mean, that's just, when you see it, when you feel it, you say, okay, this is a solution, you know. We spoke a lot about technologies and a lot of stuff. I come from the tech world, so I love it. But I believe there is a path. It's just a partnership, rebuilding the relationship with the nature, and just using the nature, what the nature gives us.
Excuse me. Big bit.
Okay. Yes. So the feedback, yes, the feedback we have also from our customers is that we are a connection for them with the nature. You know, in Paris, the nature is very, very rare. We don't have many parks. It's very urban. And when they go to Mur, they told us it's kind of because they discover a new vegetable, because they see the vegetables, because they can feel it, they can smell it. They are in kind of closer to nature, just coming to our restaurant.
Totally. And I know there's this big perspective, too, of your background and experience in building consumer brands. What's the secret to success in that and all that you've been doing?
So that's very tough to build a consumer brands. Much easier to build a B2B brand. I would say my experience with the fork. First of all, of course, you have to create real value for customers. Okay, it's an advice. You know, it's easy advice, but very often you think about marketing, you think about a lot of stuff. But at the end, if you have a good product, people will buy it. If you don't have a good product, and this is what we call product market fit in the digital world. Okay, is my product right for my market? And for the fork, for example, it took us 3 years to go to the right product market fit. And the growth was very slow, and then the growth started to jump. The second one I'm a big believer in is conviction. Okay, what is your brand built on? What is your mission? You know, is your brand built to make money and because you see a business opportunity, etc.? It can work, but I believe the best brand and the bigger one, and even some of them that are now seems very business oriented, came from people passionate about their topics and that really build something based on deep conviction. And this is what I love with Mur, is that we have amazing conviction, you know. And with my we are 2 founders, and we are super aligned. Okay, we are very happy to build a great business because this is the way we believe today you can do great things in the world. But this is not the end game, and we will not stop doing what we believe in, even if it would bring us more growth, more profitability, more fame. because this is not how we envision our business today.
To that point, do you imagine expanding? You're having 5 restaurants now. Do you see more, or do you feel this is the right size? This is where we're going to stay, if depending on that alignment of the
No,
future
that's a
and
very
what it
good
means?
question. The more I'm, working on Mur, the more I believe that part of the issue is size. The big company, whatever you say, whatever you think, whatever you want, you start to build machine, and that, kind of, and this is what I saw with the fork, to be honest. 50 people, 100 people, that's okay. 1,000 people, it's kind of something that is not anymore what you want, because you cannot control it anymore as you want. So what we are trying to build with Mur, so this is the first, we are thinking ecosystem, and we are thinking one ecosystem should be one farm, one kitchen, and maybe 5 restaurants, what we have today, the first one. And this ecosystem should be very autonomous, okay? And it should not need any other part of the company almost to work. And then we say, okay, we can build one ecosystem, then we'll build another one, then another one, then another one. Of course, there will be links between those ecosystems. We don't know exactly yet if that's one company, a co-op. We don't exactly know, but this is how we envision, indeed, not to build one big machine, but to keep the nature, but also the human. I really believe that you are much happier, when you know why you work, what you work on, or when you can see the result on what you work on. The bigger the company is, the less you lose that connection. Because of course, Mur is more than, as I say, a business. We also want to make sure that people working for Mur become better people professionally and personally.
Well, if anyone's looking for a place to get lunch tomorrow or dinner tonight, I think you have your place right here. Is there any closing words you want to say as we go out now?
Yeah, so this is the power of consumers, so the power of all of us. I would repeat that, and also the connection. I really believe we have been losing, it's exactly what Christophe was saying. We have been losing the connection. And when you lose the connection, then the other part, so nature, becomes something you don't understand, you don't value. Yeah. Even if you value it intellectually, you don't value it emotionally. And rebuilding connection with the nature, whether by going in it, growing food, vegetables, there are many ways to do it, but really, in my opinion, will help the world make that climate crisis or biodiversity crisis or water crisis, whatever crisis we are speaking in, something that is not anymore a kind of, okay, this is something we have to solve, but we would prefer to business as usual, but something we are happy to solve together.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for attending this session and for all that we've heard today around how we can reconnect with nature as well as use technology and our plate to change the world. Thank you.